about my love? Wasn't it enough? Just let me know so I can hold.
Now, talking about the 12-team playoff, the great transition over to James Franklin and Penn State that have just come up short, regardless if it's a coaching blunder, regardless of how much people want to hate Drew Allar and what he did last year and having absolutely no wide receivers. I mean, there was plenty of games that we watched on stream. And I'm like, dude, if you're walking away from the Michigan game talking about that Drew Aller sucks, you just are not seeing football like I see football. I don't know. That's just weird, and it's just making an excuse to say that a guy in his first year starting sucked, because that's absolutely not true. But as we know, James Franklin is a recruiting Mongol. He gets who he wants when he wants. And Drew Allar, I think, is his first 5-star quarterback, right?
Yep. Yeah, all those other guys were only 4 or even 3 stars.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, because he did have. So when Sean Clifford was there, Will Levis was there and transferred out.
Correct.
To Kentucky, right?
Yes.
So, James Franklin's coaching career has definitely been up and down. I think he only won the Big Ten one time, and he just can't get through Ohio State and Michigan for whatever reason. They had a really strong schedule last year as well. So, but the question is the 12-team playoff going to benefit this man? Because it's like you can lose 1 or 2 games and probably find yourself into the playoffs very easy at maybe that 11 or 12 seed.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to help them at least compete in the postseason and have a chance for more beyond their typical 10-2 season. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a record that is, at least for the regular season, because, who knows what happens in a bowl game. Like 11-2 or 10-3 is almost synonymous with James Franklin and his time at Penn State. And that is absolutely, at least if this past year was any indication, that was good enough to get you into the 12-team playoff. I mean, you are a top 12 team in the country if you only have 2 losses. Beyond that, you're looking at 3 losses if you're a Power 5 team. So it's good enough to get them there, but then it's like, well, what do you do with it? James Franklin hasn't done much in his big games, and it's kind of a problem, right? It's going to look a little different now moving forward because they don't have the same. They don't have divisions in the Big Ten anymore, right? They have different opponents thrown in there with with USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Oregon, probably out of that bunch, might be the only one who you can say is in the same tier as Ohio State and Michigan. So there might be some years where they only have to play one of those teams. I'm not exactly sure how their schedule is looking to shape out, but their problem hasn't gone away. I have no reason to believe that James Franklin now in a 12-team playoff is suddenly going to be able to win big games. Now, it does help that, if you're the higher ranked seed, you're playing at home. I think that could be a big plus for Penn State. The problem is if you look at where they were this year with their 2 losses, you can't bank on being one of the higher seeds. I'm looking right here at a graphic of, this past year's, hypothetical 12-team playoff under the current format. And they're a 10 seed. So they not only would they be on the road, but they would be playing a 7 seed Ohio State, right? So they would be playing one of the few teams who they have been struggling with, like ever since James Franklin came into town. So I don't have much reason to believe at this point that Penn State can all of a sudden, now that they're making the playoffs, I don't have reason to believe that they're actually going to do much with those opportunities, because you're still going to be playing teams like Florida State, Missouri, Oregon, Ole Miss, Georgia, and then Liberty. Those were the other 6 teams aside from them in Ohio State who would have been in the quarterfinal, or not in the quarterfinals, like the first round. I don't know if they beat any of those teams, right?
Yeah.
So, we know they lost to Ole Miss. So we're just looking at this it's going to be good that they make it to the playoffs, but they're going to, I mean, they might win one game eventually, but right now, James Franklin, he can't win big games. And the playoffs, when you take all the best teams in the country together, you're only going to have big games. So kind of harsh for Penn State fans to hear, but like, I don't think things are going to go too well for them in the playoffs unless James Franklin really gets them going or they have a good matchup.
Yeah. So thinking about when they won the Big Ten last, and they haven't been there in a long time. I mean, the first and only time that they've been there in like the last 10 years is in 2016, and they were 11-3 that season, but they won the Big Ten. Then the previous year, he actually had a better season record-wise at 11-2, and then in 2019, 11-2, 2022, 11-2, 2023, 10-3. So like James Franklin is not a pushover coach, and I mean,
right.
a lot of success, especially on those defensive teams, had to go to Manny Diaz being there. Like I think Manny Diaz is a defensive mogul. Like, you know, if anything happens at Duke, at least his defense is going to be really good.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, if the 12-team playoff was around after the 13 years of him coaching, he could have got in 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times. You know, if the 12-team playoff worked in his favor.
He's right there.